Hello, Cami. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, you made it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to get signed in to Zoom, but I guess it doesn't matter since I'm connected.
Yeah. What is it asking you for from
Just
connect?
it's asking me to log into my account.
Okay. All right. Well, you're here, so
So it's all good.
yeah, I prefer Zoom, and I have a few clients where I will they do Teams. And
hmm
so, I'm like, every time I try to log into Teams, there's always something that I have to do. So awesome. Mandy, good to see you again.
Hey, good morning. Well, I guess for you it's morning. For me, it's afternoon.
Oh, okay. Well, afternoon. Yes. Okay, fair enough.
Because what is it, 9 o'clock there?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where are you again, Mandy?
I'm in Ohio.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but I'm actually from Pittsburgh originally.
Oh, okay. I've never
Yeah.
been there. It's really close to me, though. I
I,
should
I,
probably visit.
I was gonna say, if you haven't, so I moved in 2002, and like what that city has gone through, like I'm super proud to be from Pittsburgh. I think there's just a great work
Yeah.
ethic, and I'm really proud to be from there. And the city has transformed, including the fact that just even, like Google has some things, and I mean, there's some pretty big companies that are going there. So hang on a sec, we have a few other people that are. I'm gonna remove. Uh, Hang on a second. Okay. And we've got someone else here, and we're gonna let a few other people just get started, and then yeah, excited about what we're gonna cover here today. So one of the things that Mike and I have discussed is kind of like a little bit more of our plan for the year, and today's topic is going to be about finding low-hanging fruit. So we're going to kind of start with the end in mind and kind of go backwards from there. So, hello, Mike.
Hello.
All
Sorry
right.
for the tardiness here.
That's okay. We've got someone else joining, and Nicole, welcome. And H Price, remind me, what is your first name?
Holly.
Holly. Okay. Hello, Holly. Welcome. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
you know what? I think there's going to be some other people that are going to be joining us, and just to make sure we've got 30 minutes, we want to cover a lot of ground here. So we're going to get started, and as I see other people coming in, we'll just go ahead and admit them, and they'll be able to catch up on where we're at. So I'm Mark Jamnick. I'm also joined here with, so I'm founder of Kindred, and Mike Jones is co-founder of Kindred. And, we're here and we're excited about doing these opportunities here. Kindred is really about focusing on growing business relationships. And while we want to focus on sales and leads, that's not the only thing that we're focused on. We really want to utilize a lot of the strategies that we talk about in both this CRM call as well as a LinkedIn optimization call that we do on the third Thursday. So first Thursday we do the CRM, and the second or the third Thursday we do the LinkedIn. And we have some people that are back. So welcome. You're always welcome to come back. And so, what we're going to be talking about today is finding low-hanging fruit. And so I wanted to kind of kick it back over to Mike. He's going to be moderating today, and just you want to do a quick intro, and then we'll have
Yep.
everyone have a chance to share a little bit of their intro.
Yep. I think I know most of you. My name is Mike Jones. Obviously, you probably know me more from Resound and the agency that I run and own. But Mark and I formed Kindred and launched it last November. And this has really been an extension of our own personal relationship with one another, just having worked together for many years on business development, both for my businesses as well as for some of our clients on the Resound side, and just seen some really cool things happening in that space and want to kind of share what we're learning and what we're seeing in the industry with you all. And that's why we do these quarter or these monthly Q&A calls. So we're excited to do that. I know we've got limited time, so we're going to try to be as efficient as possible to get to the Q&A section of this call. And as we go, just be thinking like, what are questions you might have around CRM usage, optimization, and again, with that kind of lens in mind that Mark and I have that we want to bring to everything we do, which is ultimately relationship development. And not to reiterate too much what Mark just said, but I think it's helpful to just part of this comes out of a philosophy that in professional services in particular, so much of the client um, loyalty, the client development is built on relationship. And so, how can relationship be a core focus all the way through the entire relationship that you have with a client from someone who does not know you and your firm and anyone from your firm all the way through to a client who's been with you for, decades and is a great referrer of other clients for you. That relationship development, I think, is really at the heart of everything that we're trying to do. So I hope that makes sense. If you got questions, it's a Q&A, so it's great.
Regular. That's what we're here for.
Yep. I think we're going to do an around the room, get everybody introduced real quick. So if we could just, we'll go in just the order of the squares on my screen. Just let everybody know who you are, your name, what firm you're with, and maybe where you're calling in from geographically. It's always fun to kind of hear where everybody's from. So I'll start with Cami and then Mandy.
I'm Kami Miner. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at Anglin Reichman Armstrong. I'm in the Huntsville, Alabama office today. We have 3 offices, one here in Huntsville, and then we've got 2 in Florida. Those locations are Pensacola and Winter Haven.
Thanks, Cami. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Mandy and then Holly.
Hello, I'm Mandy Fry. I work for the practice growth department at Ray. And my role specifically is just directly in CRM. And I'm calling from Worcester, Ohio. So
Thanks for being here. Coming
Yeah.
back, Mandy. We didn't
thanks
scare
for
you
having
away.
me.
Love it. Love it.
Not
great.
yet. Don't push it, Mike.
Oh, I'm sure I will at some point, and you'll be like, I'm out of
Yeah,
here.
you were a lot of trouble last time, so yeah.
Holly and then Nicole.
Well, howdy, neighbor. I'm Holly Price. I'm with Cohen and Co. and I'm calling from Akron, Ohio.
Thanks for being here, Holly. Nicole and then Christine.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hageman. I own a small marketing agency in San Diego, California. We work primarily with professional services firms, so law firms and accounting firms mostly. And I'm glad to join you today.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
And
so
Christine.
excited.
Hi, I'm Christine. I'm the marketing director at WIS. We're located in New Jersey.
Thanks for being here, Christine. All right. I'm going to hand it over to Mark. He's going to share a little bit about some thinking he's done around CRM, and then we'll jump into Q&A.
Awesome. Okay, great. So one of the big things, as I was alluding to a little bit earlier about the topic for today, it's really about low-hanging fruit. And so one thing, this is going to be a rhetorical question that you can answer. No, there's necessarily, I was going to ask it kind of out loud, and then I'm like, I'm just going to allow people to think about how they would answer this, because what we want to make sure of is there's opportunities from after this call that you can instantly implement some of the things that we're talking about. And also, I want to say too, and this is one of the biggest things that I share with a lot of my clients too, is sometimes if we answer a question a certain way, it's like sometimes there's a little bit of the shame that comes in, like, oh man, I should probably know that, or this, that, or the other. And so that's the reason I want you to kind of rhetorically ask this question to yourself. And so the question here is, could you, as you look through your CRM, be able to identify that low-hanging fruit of those relationships that you've been developing and working through to really be able to foster them to that next stage of the process? And like I said, it's rhetorical at this point. And what I wanted to start off with was something that a number of years ago, when I really got into HubSpot, was 2017 to 2018. And I basically worked through HubSpot in a way that I could start to really identify those things. And so I want to show you literally a sheet that I shared with, I was working at an ad agency at the time, and I shared it with the general sales manager essentially. And he was like, what is this? He's like, I've never seen this before. He's like, you're actually giving me a report on where things are in the funnel. And so I wanted to kind of show that as an example of where we're going to go. And then I have, all of you should have received a CRM naming convention sheet. And for those of you that are returning, we're going to be kind of digging into that. But the way that we're going to get to the numbers in terms of figuring out where that low-hanging fruit may be is going to be utilizing this CRM naming convention. So let me start sharing my screen. And like I said, I'm just going to go over this real quickly so that you can see it. But what I basically did was I basically said, all right, well, if there's 965, there were 965 contacts in my HubSpot because I was able to pull that. This was very specifically focused on industry. So again, that's an area for you to also be thinking about. Have you identified very specific industries, and can you begin to segment your list inside of those different industries? Because different industries have different interests, and as you're looking to develop relationships inside those industries, the more you have an opportunity to offer value in a way that that industry is uniquely suited to hear and receive that value. From there, I basically had, 95 people that were engaging. So that meant that they were opening emails, conversations, no meeting was set. So I had basically set up some strategies. And again, this is what I'd like for us to talk about and then answer any questions that may serve you in terms of that. But I was utilizing lifecycle stage. If you're using, I know that there's a Microsoft 365 in here. I know that there's maybe some HubSpot users, some Active Campaign users. Those are a lot of the primary CRMs that we use. Mike and I are CRM agnostic. Essentially, we all CRMs kind of do, and I'm making a very, very general statement, but they all do a lot of the same things. It's just there's naming conventions that may change. So while I might be calling a life cycle, it might be a tag, or it might be a label inside of Active Campaign, or it might be something else inside of Microsoft 365. But the idea here is, how would you know of that industry? So I had this very specific industry, and there were 965 people in this specific vertical, and then 95 people were actively engaging with that. And I was using filters inside of HubSpot. Like I said, if you're using Active Campaign, you could use that with tags. If you're using Microsoft 365, I'm not as very familiar with that, so I don't know exactly the nuanced name of what that might be. But this can give you a chance to start to see who's actually engaging. I also was keeping track of people that I had talked to, and like those 95 people, when I saw that they were opening emails, and I was able to filter through to find out through their life cycle stage. I was able to call them and just, reach out to them and say, hey, I sent you this email about this specific thing that was very specific to your industry. Did you have any questions? And it just opened up a conversation because I saw that they were opening, or I saw that they were clicking on things, and it just gave me a chance to further that relationship that may have just started through email, right? But over time, there was more and more value that was added inside of the industry. And then appointments set, opportunities that had where, again, they kind of fall into different stages, and then even just the proposals that were sent. So, and then the number of closes. So it was basically, it ended up turning into about a 10% closing ratio based off of the 965 people. There were 2 closes that happened. And again, I wanted to kind of just break that down, and then I want to go back over to this worksheet that you all received. And the way that I really was able to start to identify where that low-hanging fruit was I used inside of HubSpot, I used a filter, and I said, if they had a life cycle stage of a sales qualified lead with a lead status of open, I saw that they opened an email, and I was able to filter out who all opened the emails inside of this specific industry. And so that's what this naming convention worksheet is really about, is kind of helping you to select these various stages that you may have worked on or may not have. But one takeaway that I would share with you is, as we go through this Q&A, think about what you may currently be using, and can you continue to advance that and improve and refine that? Or are you not using that currently? And which one of these fields could you really start to hone in on, have your partners start to begin to clean up, or, you clean up, or however that may look? I would invite you to pick one and select one and focus on that over the next month. And then you start to have cleaner data. So I feel like I was kind of talking at a quicker clip here because I want to make sure that we get enough time to go into some Q&A. But like I said, I wanted to kind of show a little bit of, hey, you might have all these contacts in here, but what the main thing is, we want to filter them down. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I want to make sure I open it up to some questions. And, if there's any clarification that needs to be made, I'd love to address that at this point. So any questions, thoughts? Mike, is there anything that you wanted to kind of add to that?
I did actually have one just kind of summary thought, and that is, um, for everyone, like, can you think about everyone in your CRM as somewhere in a funnel, right? And could you, at a couple clicks of a button, know exactly where in the funnel they are? That might be another kind of like inverted way to think about what Mark was just explaining. I know you're getting in kind of the weeds, Mark, of like how to technically build that out and start
Yeah.
thinking through that process. But I think it was helpful for me to just think about it as like, do I have reporting that would actually allow me to see where every prospect is at within those stages of engagement, right, and that funnel? And then you can do some really interesting things, as Mark already alluded to it, of like, okay, now we can start to parse that out by, by industry sector. And so we can start delivering reports to individuals within the firm who can then do follow-ups in very like specific ways, knowing exactly where that person's at in the process. So that might be a first question, but I want to hear what you all think, what questions you've got, and we'll take some time now.
I'm just thinking that if the number of prospects is very large, you're not going to be able to necessarily reach out with a phone call to all of them. So that might be where an email drip campaign or something like that would come in, I imagine.
Yep.
Okay.
I think, go ahead, Mark. I know you got lots of thoughts on this.
What's that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I mean, the idea with that 965 was there was a lot of people in a very generic, generic for that industry. Let's call it education, right? There was some specific things that there was discovery around what the education industry was struggling with. And so those emails were sent, and that was in a drip sequence.
Yeah.
And then from there, you could start to identify where people started to have more pain points. They were struggling with this particular challenge, challenge A or challenge B. And from there, as you have this drip sequence, let's call it 5, right? If they didn't click on that first email and they clicked on the second one because it was about challenge B, you saw that they opened that email.
Right.
And because of as Mike was, I think that's a really articulate way of kind of summarizing what I was talking about, which is really being able to kind of look at every single one of these steps as a touch point, right? Like, hey, if we meet each other in a networking event, and Mike has always like brought this up as a really beautiful example. When you go to a networking event, it's not like, hi, my name's Mark. It's nice to meet you. Would you like to meet? It's like, well, we're meeting right now, right? Like, like, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Or are you married? Do you have kids? Whatever. Like, you start to develop this relationship. That's the initial piece. But I feel like, and Mike has brought this up in a number of different times. It's like so many people just kind of go right from like, hi, like on digital, right? Hi, my name's Mark. Do you want to meet? And it's like, whoa, I don't know anything about you. So what we want to do with this drip sequence is start to give them information. And in that case, right, we could start sending them in information about challenge A, challenge B, challenge C. So when they open challenge B, we are now a little bit more aware that they have a challenge around there. So when you do pick up the phone to call them or send other information, if there's other information that could really enhance the value of what's going to help them accomplish challenge B with your help, you're now sending them information that is relevant based off of some things that you're seeing as far as behaviors.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm just thinking, some of my clients, one of them in particular, they have like a 20,000 contact database in HubSpot and they get a lot of engagement. And so being able to really segment these down, identify the pain points, absolutely through drip campaigns, but then also how many touch points do you really need to have, to kind of even narrow it even more? Is there kind of a general, 6 touch points and that will kind of get it to where somebody's really interested, like a hot prospect versus maybe a lukewarm lead?
I'm going to lean on a little bit of some what I've seen inside of HubSpot, even just how they design some of their sequences, is that you typically can do about 5 emails in a sequence.
Okay.
So I think, given their dynamics, I think they've probably done a lot of research around that. So I'm going to kind of just lean on a little bit of their expertise inside of that because of the campaigns that I've built. And what you'll see at the end of that is whether there's engagement or not engagement. And, you know, again, both of that information is very helpful, right? If no engagement, it's like you clearly haven't, you know, your email subjects aren't landing, the information you're sharing isn't landing. So therefore, moving into another sequence could then start to add some information in there. So I think by the end of 5, you could start to get an idea whether or not they're engaged or not engaged. And, you know, then you could start to see what other sequence you might want to step them into. So I don't know if there's anything else, Mike, that you had to enhance or.
Yeah, I think I would just caution against like getting too hard and fast with like numbers like that of like
Hmm.
how many in a sequence should I expect. Now, obviously, going into a client conversation, Nicole, you're going to want to give them some kind of idea of like, here's what we're going to probably need to do, right? We need to do 5. But the reality is like part of the value of tracking every lead through those stages is so that you can then you can report back to yourself and say what's working and not working.
Mhm.
So we might find that like a certain industry or a certain persona, like if we're really tracking this by persona and we're tailoring the campaign and all the information all the way through that we're sending them, we might find out that one persona needs 12 touches. And
Hmm.
some of those might be emails and some might actually be in person. Your CRM should not just track what happens in a digital space. It really should be an entire relationship tracker if you're using it correctly. And,
Yeah.
and I know it's hard because there is some manual work there. Like, you know, you go to an event and you meet with someone and you have a conversation, or you take them out for a lunch, or you run like an in-person seminar or something like that. Like, there are ways to speed that up and automate some of that. But you want to be tracking every one of those touch points, because if you don't, what you'll find is that this funnel just becomes, there's these black boxes in your funnel where you go, I don't know what moved the needle. I got a deal, I got a new client out of it, but I don't really know what worked and didn't work because I wasn't tracking everything.
Yeah.
So, in my experience, yes, maybe 5 email touches in a sequence like that, but in all likelihood, they're probably experiencing a lot more touches that are just not being tracked, that
Mhm.
are outside of, you know, a automation drip sequence. So just thinking through like, okay, am I showing up in places where these prospects are? And I think one challenge, I think, especially for any of us on the call that are marketers, is we often don't have the full perspective of what the relationship looks like, because our segment of it, or for whatever reason, you know, we've only been given a portion of the relationship to work on, and just realizing like there's an individual to individual requirement in the process of building a relationship. So anything we're doing that's kind of like mass market is really important. It's really helpful, but ultimately, especially in professional services, as you know, Nicole, like the end result of a sale is usually done by a person talking with another person.
Yeah.
And my guess is there's probably even one-to-one experiences happening further up the funnel. They're just not being tracked.
Yeah.
Um, and that's hard, you know. A lot of professionals don't want to spend the time to track that stuff. Um, but if you can at least start to track some of it, or track what you can with emails and drip sequences and that kind of stuff, then you can start to show the value of reporting. If you can deliver to, you know, one of the practitioners in your firm, probably a partner who's got some you know, sales ability, business development responsibility, and you can say, "Hey, I've got 5 hot prospects for you." And they say, "Oh, that's interesting." And you say, "Hey, would you just try either calling or emailing all of them this week? See what happens."
Yeah.
You'll start to get some credibility built for sure. Anyway, sorry, I'm talking too much again.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, we
What
got
other
about 7 minutes
questions?
left, so I think we got time for one more question, and then we could kind of do a little wrap up here with some takeaways. But any other questions? I thought that was really, yeah, and I again, kind of building back on what Mike said, was just relationships, right? It is about the relationship touch point, and it's not about all just automation. So, all right, yeah,
Automation's great though. Love
yeah, I agreed. Yeah.
it.
feel like this is a waiting game here.
Maybe a reverse question, if that's all right, Mark.
Sure.
How would everyone measure their like effectiveness as an organization using their CRM? Like on a scale of 1 to 10.
I would probably say we're at a 6 or a 7. I have a pretty good amount of buy-in, and we utilize the email tagging system in HubSpot, so that helps with our tracking as far as like when we're following up with folks or responding to things. Everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of folks that are using it the way it's intended to, they'll have the plugin built into their Outlook, so they're just hitting a switch, they're toggling a log or not log, and it's obviously attaching to that contact record within HubSpot, which then attaches to the deals and so forth. And so I'm able to look at activity and kind of see who's utilizing it the most. And then in that activity, I can quantify it further to see which leads are being tracked and all the things. So I feel pretty good about that. I would love us to be at like an 8 or 9. But baby steps, right?
Yep. It's a process.
Yes. It was a game changer turning on that feature for people, though. Like
Yes.
just going into their office and being like, hey, let me have your Outlook for a second. Don't worry, I'm not logging all of your emails. It's just when you want it to do it. Because that was the hesitation. Like, well, I don't want all of my emails logged. I'm like, well, I don't want all of your emails logged either. I don't want that. So just like showing them like how to turn it on and how to turn it off. It is a manual process for a reason. That way you have control over what is being logged and what's not. I think that was a big game changer for us to kind of allow that ease of ability of use, just by a button click. Because nobody wants, I won't say nobody wants to, but a lot of them don't want to take the time to log in and start a record and all that. And I get that because it is time consuming, especially if you're following up with 5 or 10 people a day. So
right. That's good. Thanks, Kimmy.
Yep.
Anyone else want to?
I think at 6 is pretty impressive. I would never be that generous with our organization. I think, there's still a lot of, with all the different directions accounts get pulled in. I feel like no matter what, this just falls to the bottom. Clients always come first, and there's always a reason why they can't just hit the button to log the email. They can't, so I feel like that's kind of the challenge. So this is interesting to me because we are still collecting data, even though they may not be actively helping us collect that data. So what kinds of things can we help make more interesting to them? So yeah, some good things to think about.
Okay.
Not to talk too much, sorry, but I just thought of something else that really helped us that might benefit others to as far as like getting to a 6 like we are. Another thing that I did that has really helped is I moved all of our forms out of Microsoft and put them into HubSpot. So people fill out forms when they want a proposal or when they need something from marketing relating to a client or a prospect. When they go and do things with clients, it's literally they just go into our Teams channel and they can fill a form out. They don't even have to leave Teams. And all of that data is then automated into HubSpot because it's a HubSpot form, and it's attaching to that contact record or creating a new one if they're not there. Anytime we have a new client that's onboarded, same process. They fill a form out to get the client ID generated for their client, so that I'm not having to pull records out of our practice management tool to then upload into the system. Every new client is already getting put in there manually, so we're not losing data. So I think that's another just tip that has helped us kind of get there, because still people aren't having to log in, right? Yeah. So they're doing things inside the CRM and we're getting the data without a very manual process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. Eliminate friction is what I hear inside of that, right? And so the easier you can make that, and if it starts with a form, right, that is easily a link, that link could eventually add its way into HubSpot, or I see, Holly, that you're in Pardot, and like those things can eventually be worked in, because I know sometimes there's a little bit of, there's an investment in terms of getting some of that back end set up. So the thing about, and I've worked with clients within Salesforce, and it's a big behemoth, right? And so like anytime you need to do any type of development, there's a cost, and you want to make sure you get it right. And sometimes it's like, oh man, there's a lot to get this set up right. And if you haven't set it up right, then it's like, oh man, we've invested all that money for it to not work. So again, I almost wonder too, like just to what Kimmy was mentioning, like if you are running into that, is there a simple form that could be filled out that allows that level of friction to be minimized before it needs to then eventually be worked into your CRM? So
Yeah, it's just a variable. So like
yeah,
no back end support needed at all. I did it myself. And
yeah,
I'm definitely not a coder and I don't do any of that like IT
yeah.
stuff. That's not my forte.
Yeah, that's great. Well, perfect. Well, I know we're close to we're right at time here, so I want to make sure. Look like Mandy, I know you had actually taken yourself off mute, so if you wanted to answer that, and then also
No.
would just kind of go a couple extra minutes if you guys, and if anyone needs to leave, you can obviously do that.
No, I was just going to mention that we have all the tools to do or like to obviously identify the low-hanging fruit, but our people don't use the funnel very well. So they're not in there moving it to the next step and keeping up with at what stage they're in and when was the last contact. And we use like all these external software. So we like use IntraHive, Marketo. So nothing's really like connected, right?
Mhm.
So we don't have a great way of like I just pulled a list while we were all talking of like Marketo contacts that have had interesting moments, which is like they opened an email, they attended a webinar, and it's like I can't do anything with this because they have no employer. Like I don't even know where these people work. So,
Hmm.
I think it's just a little broken, but that was a good point, Cami, about putting the forms and things that they use inside of CRM to get them more comfortable with being in there all the time. I think that's a really good point. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
I think that's
Cami did have to jump, but
Oh, okay.
I can relay that to her.
Thanks.
But yeah, I loved her point on that. It was a great insight.
yeah, great. Any other takeaway? And then Mike, we could kind of wrap up with a little bit of, our next opportunity. And if we want to dig into a little bit more for any specific element that you're working on, would be happy to talk about this a little bit more specifically about your firm and how we can, support your go through any other questions that are specifically around that and kind of dig in a little deeper.
Cool. Well, I just appreciate all of you jumping on and being a part of our Q&A today. We do have another one coming up in 2 weeks. This one will be focused around LinkedIn, specifically Sales Navigator, and using that as an outreach tool and as a prospect tool. So if that's of interest to you and you're not already on that calendar invite, please let us know. We'd love to get you on there if that makes sense for you. As Mark mentioned, if you have a specific need or challenge that you'd like to talk with us about, kind of outside of these calls, we're more than happy to set up a call with you and just see what's going on. And if there's a way that we can help you or point you in the right direction, we'd love to be able to do that. So, yeah, I hope this was helpful for you. Again, we'll do this one, the CRM one, next month again. And we try to kind of cover a little bit different lens of CRM each time and then open that up for Q&A just like we did today. And then our LinkedIn one in 2 weeks. So appreciate you all being here. If you have any other further questions, we can stick around for a couple minutes, but I think we'll be wrapped up.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks,
You.
everyone.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, bye. I'm going to